Hi all, it's PJ and welcome to Bernina Quick Tips. This tip is on using an embroidery design that is larger than your embroidery hoop. This month's embroidery club project is a zippy bag, and the way that the design is set up, it really lends itself perfectly to be able to take advantage of Bernina's ability to stitch a design larger than the hoop. I'll go into embroidery. I'm using the 790 Pro simulator. Depending on your machine, this may look just slightly different. This function will work, as far as I know, on all of the Bernina embroidery units. I've got my oval hoop chosen here, and I'm going to bring up the 5x7. This design will just fit within this particular hoop. There wouldn't need to be any changes done here. If you move to a larger design, if I go to the 6x10 design, the first thing that you can see happen here is that your hoop turns red. That is an indication that the design is larger than the hoop. The 6x10, even if we move this, it's still going to be the majority of this design is outside of this particular hoop. To change your hoops, go into the hoop function over here on the left, and I am going to go in and choose my MIDI hoop. So this is a little bit better. You still see that red line, but I'll show you how this can work. I'm going to close out of that function, and we're back here. If I simply move this design to the left to right here, you're still getting this out here, but what you can do is move this, and I'm kind of eyeballing this. Part of your design is still going to be sticking out up here, and I'll zoom in to really show you what I'm talking about. And this is really cutting it close, but it will work. I want this centered top to bottom here, and you can see it's 329 this way, and it's just slightly off center here. If I just click my Y, that is now centered top to bottom, and that is exactly what I want. I'm going to zoom in and show you. The stitching on this part really is just the side seams of the zippy bag. So what you want to get inside of your hoop and have your machine do all the work is everything pretty much from this red line up to here, up to the top of this. This little tiny tidbit up here really is just a basting border, and if it gets lopped off, you'll be fine. I'm going to zoom way in and show you what I'm talking about here. So I'm zooming in. When you have your hand, you can drag this section. So this box is showing what we're viewing here. That black seam is the final seam on the left side of the bag, and you can see here it's just fitting inside. This orange line is the zipper seam, and you're going to get most of that. You'll lose a little tiny bit of your basting border up at the top, and that's going to be just fine. Because I centered this, the other side should look exactly like this. If I zip down here to the other end, whoops, you can see that is just catching. And over on this side, this will just be stitching as well. And really, this is a placement line. This is the deco stitch line, and that is all in there. The 6x10 size will fit in the MIDI hoop. From here, once you get this all set, you can just go in and add your personalization just as you would following the directions for the standard models. Once you have your design in place, you could add personalization. It's going to go to my plus, my machine, and then my lettering. And here I'll just type in "so fun," hit my check, go to my eye menu, and I'll just rotate that. This part is completely optional. You can, of course, just adjust it. I'm going to zoom in a little bit here so that maybe you can see this a little bit better. you want to have it align between this line, which is going to be your top stitching line, and this line, which is also the top stitching or the deco stitch. Right now, this is just a little bit high. I can go in and I can move that down just a little bit and eyeball it between that, again, this line and this line, which with all the other lines, it is a little bit hard to see, so it kind of depends on how particular you'd like to be. Here's a little trick that could help you determine how to get that centered more accurately. If you go over here on your layers menu and select this base layer, one thing, you can just choose this. And again, here's it's this green line and the blue line. You could turn on your grid and go out of here. The grid may or may not help you, and we'll just have to zoom in here and see what you think. Here's your grid spacing here. So the green line is on this line, and your lettering is not quite an entire grid down. Here, your blue line, just by chance, happens to be falling on a grid line as well. And you can see that there's less space here than here. So in this case, maybe the grid will help you. You could choose your lettering and then just move it down a little bit so that it's more centered in between these two lines. And I'm going to say that's pretty good. This is kind of a flowy design, the font. So the fact that it is not perfectly centered may not be as obvious as if you had a block letter. Here's another thing that you can try. Go back to the zippy design itself, and you could break this apart. I'm going to move down here to my group and ungroup, and I'm going to break that apart. So now you can see all of the different layers of that design. What I want to do is go to my green, which is here. When you combine designs, it will take the design you have chosen or the section you have chosen, which in this case is 4, and it will add the one above it. So if I combine this back, now these two are in one group. If I close out of here, and now I'm going to take off the grid because it will be easier, I think, to see this without the grid in place. If I now zoom in and I have this layer selected that has both of those stitching lines, if I move this up a little bit and I select this layer, it makes that a little bit more visible. And then you can again see your stitching in between. So here's those two lines that you want that in between your lettering. Just a couple of tricks to help you center your lettering. Once this is all ready to go, and you do not have to readjust this, you could, if you wanted, since you've already broken this apart, you could move your lettering into the position that it should be in actual stitching order. I'll do that since we're right here. So you would go here to your reorder function, and this is going to want to move down to before this stitching. So after your seam stitching, which is the yellow, this one, is you're going to stitch this, and then you would put your back into place, and then you would stitch these two. So this is the correct sewing order. So since we'd already broken it up, it's pretty easy to go ahead and do that. You do not have to combine everything back to move on to stitching. You can just leave that exactly as it is. I can now just move on to stitching. When you go to here, you'll get an error because your design is outside of the hoop. And it's showing you here, your design's outside the hoop. We know that, and it's fine. So I'm just going to say okay to this, and you're ready to start stitching. When this stitch, every time the design goes outside of the hoop, you will get an error telling you it's going to stop stitching. Let me see if I can get it to simulate this. So here I'm ready to start stitching. I'm just going to go ahead and stitch. Oh, it's telling me I need to put in the correct feet and foot plate. So here's my 26 and my 0 stitch plate. All right, let's try that again. When it gets to an area that's outside of the hoop, you will get this message basically saying this part is going to stitch outside the hoop. So just hit the green check. And then just start again, and it will start up again. So you'll end up having to kind of stop and start an awful lot. The machine will automatically stop when it gets to those areas, but you'll be able to stitch the design. That's it for this Bernina quick tip. We'll see you next time. Thanks. If you'd like to follow along, this project is available for purchase at the Montevilla Sewing Center's Teachable site. The project includes the full video, written instructions, design files, and more. You can purchase the projects by the month or join the club and save. To join the club, contact the main store. If you'd like to view the video preview for this project, go to my YouTube channel, A PJ Project, go to the playlist and choose the Machine Embroidery Club, and then choose the project.